A lot of people think it's a weaker running back class in the 2024 NFL draft. And today we're going to be talking about my top 15. Now, I don't think this is a weak class at all. I think there's actually some really solid running backs in this draft class who I think are going to be pretty impactful players at the NFL level. So if you guys are new to the channel, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Leave a comment and let me know which players, which position groups you're most interested in seeing. Hit the link down below so you guys can go check out the playlist, as I've done a prospect spotlight on 14 of the 15 running backs here. The 15th one was really tough, and it's pretty much a three-way tie in there, which we'll get into that in just a second. But if you guys are new, hit that notification bell so you never miss out on a video. We've got a ton of stuff coming, and I'm really excited for it. So we mentioned that the number 15 running back was a three-way tie. Initially, it was Marshall's Rasheen Ali, a guy that I really like. I think he's got good speed. He shows some nice receiving abilities. On top of that, I just think he's a back that I think is going to translate well to the NFL. He unfortunately suffered an injury at the Senior Bowl that has moved him out of my top 15. And Cody Schrader was also up there. And while I like Schrader, I ended up going with Blake Watson as my number 15 running back. Cody Schrader is a very interesting one. High usage rate at Missouri, had a ton of production, but I think Blake Watson has a little bit more upside. Started his collegiate career with Old Dominion. He's a really quick back. I believe he ran in the 4.3s at his pro day. He's got a ton of juke moves. He's a pretty patient runner as well. He can cut back, has good jump cuts, which you like to see. And he's stronger than you would expect. He has pretty solid contact balance, was able to fight through contact, could run up the middle. He's a smaller frame, though. He's at 5'9", 195. So that's something that you don't love to see. And as a receiver and as a blocker, you just didn't really see it. It felt like if at the line of scrimmage, it just didn't really seem like he knew what to do in terms of a receiver. Didn't have great hands, nor was he the most polished route runner. But I think Watson is a solid running back. I think probably around that 5th, 6th round, I would consider taking him. He's got really, really good speed. I think he could be a nice running back in a rotation. At number 14, we've got, he reminds me of Keaton Mitchell from the Ravens in terms of just really good speed. That's really what I ended up going with there. At number 14, I landed on Kamman Vidal out of Troy. Now, this is a guy I know my good friend, the mock draft guy, absolutely loves. I think he's pretty solid. He's got good production in terms of rushing yards and rushing touchdowns. He is in the top 3 for both of those. He's an older running back. His lateral quickness is very good. He does a good job of bouncing to the outside. You like to see that. And he's a very patient runner. He finds holes. He can hit the holes as well. Bit of a smaller back again. My issues with him, change of direction in the open field. Didn't have a ton of jukes. Nothing really like that. Top of that, he wasn't really the best receiver. He seemed to catch the ball more with his chest and not with his hand. Some questions there. And his speed is not the most elite. He ran in the 4.4s for a smaller back. You don't love it. Shorter strides as well because he is a smaller back. But you can't deny that production and that vision. Reminds me a little bit of Jaylen Warren. I think he could do a lot of things. Neither are the most explosive. Neither are the greatest athletes in the world. But they were very productive coming out of school. I think Kamman Vidal could have a nice, solid NFL career. I would take him in the 5th or 6th round as well. At number 13, we've got Dylan Laube out of New Hampshire. I really like Dylan Laube. I think he's top 13. He could honestly be at number 9. I think from 13 to 9, it's very close. It really depends on preference. He's got a really good receiving arsenal. They lined him up in the slot. They played him in the outside receiver. He can run routes. I think he's probably the best route runner for a running back other than maybe one other guy, which we'll get to later. He's a strong runner, very good contact balance, great footwork. He showed jukes in the open field. He showed jump cuts. There's really a lot to like with Laube. Was a Senior Bowl standout and a guy that people really, really like. The concerns with him, his age, I believe he's around 23, 24. He's been utilized a ton for New Hampshire. Playing FCS competition as well. So that's another concern that people are going to have. And his speed. He's not the most blazing athlete in the world. He doesn't have the most electric speed, but I think his upside is certainly there. Reminds me of Austin Eckler. There's one other guy in this class that also reminds me of Austin Eckler. But I do like Dylan Laube. I think he's going to be a nice player, and I've got him at number 13. At number 12, we've got Audric Estime. This is a bit lower than I think a lot of people are going to see Estime, and it's because I think he's a very scheme-specific back. I think he's a third down, goal line, short yardage back, and I think there's a spot in the league for that. He's a very strong runner, very good through contact. You just give him the ball in short yardage situations, and he can run guys over. He's a bus. He's got pretty good open field speed. Now, his long speed is where he really thrives. If you see in the cons, he lacks quickness. He does not start off good. Ran, I believe, a 4.7 and a 40-yard dash. So his speed is not something that I really love. But in the open field, it does get better. And as a power back, I think he's going to be really, really good. Like I said, if you need goal line situations, I think Audric Estime is perfect. I love him in San Francisco as a complement to Christian McCaffrey. I think that's the thunder and lightning that you need. He's a thundering back who's not the most quick. He's also not a great receiver. Now, he was 17 for 17 on targets this year, but we don't really get to see him used in the receiving game. Not a great route runner. Reminds me of A.J. Dillon. A.J. Dillon has been very solid for Green Bay in his role. Again, a very role-specific running back who I don't think is going to be the most elite player, but I like A.J. Dillon as a comparison. I've got Estime at number 12. At number 11, we got Will Shipley. Now, we mentioned another guy who was compared to Austin Eckler. It was Will Shipley. Both Lauby and Shipley are very close for me. You could honestly, like I said, put most of these guys in any order. I wouldn't hate it. Shipley's pretty shifty, though. He's got dual threat capabilities. He's a very good receiver. I think an underrated part about Will Shipley's game is his blocking ability. He does a very solid job of landing powerful blocks, and I like to see that. One thing I don't love, his long speed. While he's got really solid quickness initially, his long speed, he does tend to slow down as he gets further down the field, which I don't love. His contact balance wasn't incredible either. He struggled when he was met with contact, and he couldn't really fight for extra yardage. But I think he's very similar to Austin Eckler in terms of he was used a lot on screen plays, was used a lot in short passing situations. He can block. And he's pretty shifty in the backfield with good jump cuts and solid vision. I think Shipley's going to be a fine running back. I think really all these 13 through 9 guys are probably picked around the 4th round. I think Shipley is a good one. So I got him at number 11. At number 10, we've got Ray Davis from Kentucky, a guy who has one of the most inspiring stories in the entire draft class, a player that was homeless, grew up in the foster system, started his collegiate career at Temple, went to Vanderbilt, finished at Kentucky as a grad transfer, had his best season yet last year. Excellent contact balance. This guy's impossible to tackle in the open field. He runs with tremendous power, which I absolutely love to see for him. But he's also a patient runner. He waits for holes to open up. He's got some nice moves that he can get to, and he's got receiving upside. He's got some solid hands, which you love to see. It's really going to come down to his age and his speed. He's not the most fast guy in the world, but what he lacks from in speed, he makes up for in power. I think Ray Davis could be one of the 5 first running backs taken off the board. I like a few guys more, but I think Ray Davis is a very solid back. Yes, he's older. Yeah, he's got a lot of mileage on his legs, but he showed a lot at his last season in Kentucky, and he honestly reminds me of Frank Gore. I really like Ray Davis. He's my number 10 running back. At number 9, we've got Bucky Irving. Now, I had him in my top 3 for a long time, and then the Combine happened, and I thought Bucky Irving absolutely tanked his draft stock at the Combine. He moved down my board pretty significantly. Now, there is a lot to like about Bucky Irving still. The receiving upside is there, but we haven't really gotten to see him be a route runner, or he wasn't used. Oregon is a very quarterback-friendly offense. It's a very spread offense. They don't really use the running backs a ton out of the backfield. The upside is there for Irving. We just didn't see it a lot. This is a guy who has incredible jukes in the open field. He's got solid receiving upside. He's impossible to tackle, similar to Ray Davis, which I love all those things. But then you see the speed numbers that come back, and you're like, okay, there are some concerns here. Now, as a runner, he reminds me a lot of James Cook. Powerful runner who's very shifty, very elusive in the open field. I really like that about Bucky Irving. I think he could be a fine back. He's in that 4th round range for me as well. I think he'll be fine, but the Combine definitely moved him down my board, and it is something that does worry me. At number 8, it is going to be Tyrone Tracy out of Purdue, a guy who I wasn't too familiar with until about last week. He turned him on as I finished up these rankings. Really liked what I saw. This is a guy who was recruited to Iowa as a wide receiver. He just converted to running back this past season. Now, if you guys go down to the cons, yes, he is 24 years old, but what differentiates Tracy from some of the other older running backs, he only has one season of being a running back under his belt. He builds up speed. Maybe his initial step is not the most electric, but once he gets into the open field, he's really hard to bring down. I think he's got very good vision. And I also thought he was a very good blocker as well. Contact balance was something that I really didn't love from him. It didn't seem like he did a great job of breaking tackles, but he's a great route runner, has great hands. I could see a team taking him in the 3rd round because they like what he offers in terms of his receiving upside. Reminds me of Miles Sanders. I think he's a better receiver than Sanders. Size is very similar. Running styles are similar as well. Eagles Sanders, though. Forget that Panthers Miles Sanders. I've got Tyrone Tracy at number 8. And now probably my most controversial take of the entire draft cycle, for the running backs at least. I've got Blake Corum at number 7. I'm going to explain. I do think Blake Corum's a good running back. And he probably would be a top 3 running back if it wasn't for some of the concerns I had. But his production has been off the charts. You look at what he's done for Michigan as a runner, year after year is at the top of the FBS in yards and touchdown. He has one of the nastiest jump cuts I have ever seen a running back have. He's a patient runner. He has jukes in the open field. He's got really solid speed. There's a lot there that you really like. But he's 5'8", which I don't love in terms of a running back. And I don't think he's a great receiver. Michigan didn't use him a lot as a receiver. Now, when they did get him the ball, he was okay, but there are some questions there. Those aren't really why. I mean, he could be a smaller back and have receiving questions. I'd still put him in the top 3. It is the usage and the injuries for me. He tore his ACL last year, and while he was good for Michigan this year, don't get me wrong, an ACL tear doesn't look good on your resume as a older rookie anyways. And this is a guy who has an unbelievable amount of carries. I believe he's got over 800 carries in his collegiate career, which is way too many. We know running backs don't last long in the league. I think Corum is going to be one of the first running backs off the board. But I would be hesitant because you look at that injury history. You look at his high usage rate. You look at his age, and you're like, okay, how high of a ceiling does he really have? Corum might be a great running back, and this might come back and, punch me in the face. But I just don't really see him having a great NFL career due to some injury concerns. Giovanni Bernard is my comparison. Patient runners, bit undersized, good jump cuts, had good production in the league, but he didn't last very long. I think Corum could be used in a very similar way, and that's why he's number 7. At number 6, we've got Marshon Lloyd. Now, this is another guy who's got injury history, but when you look at it, I think he's a little bit better. I have him ahead of Corum because I think he's a stronger runner. He's very good through contact. This is a guy who excels through contact, which I was really impressed with when I turned on Marshon Lloyd's tape. Very hard to tackle in the open field. He's very quick, very agile, elusive as well. But this is another guy who's got a torn ACL on his resume, and I think he's a underwhelming blocker. In his hands, while he offers more as a receiver than Corum, which really gets him the nod, his hands have been inconsistent. There are some drops on tape at times for Marshon Lloyd. I think he's going to be fine. He reminds me of DeAndre Swift a little bit, a player that I think he's a little bit better than in terms of his vision, but both are dual threat running backs. I think Lloyd's going to be a good running back in the league. I've got him at number 6. Entering the top 5, we started off with Isaac Garendo from Louisville. A really fun running back prospect. This is a guy who played in the same backfield as Jonathan Taylor. Yeah, he's been around the block. He started his collegiate career at Wisconsin. We know Wisconsin produces great running backs. We'll be seeing another one very, very soon. He's a bigger, stronger running back with elite athleticism. He had the fastest 40 time at the combine with a 4.33. He's undeveloped as a receiver. I don't think he's super shifty, doesn't have a ton of jukes, doesn't have a lot of jump cuts. But this is a guy who you could just get the ball to, and then when he gets past that first layer of the defense, he could be gone. He's got elite speed. The most intriguing part about him is he's got lots of tread on the tires. Yeah, he's 24. Going back to Tyrone Tracy, this is a guy who's only been used as he's been a running back his whole career. He doesn't have very many carries at his collegiate career. He reminds me of Jonathan Taylor in terms of running style and size. Neither are the greatest receiving backs. They can, but they're undeveloped there. And Isaac Guerendo is a powerful, strong runner. I really, really like Isaac Guerendo. He's my number 5 running back. Speaking of Wisconsin running backs, Braylon Allen is number 4. His age is the most intriguing part of him. He's 20 years old. He runs with unbelievable power and speed. He was a 4.4 speed guy. He has the power to just run you over. He's very strong. He's 6'1", I believe, 245. You love his frame at the running back position. And it really comes down to he cannot catch the ball out of the backfield to save his life. Not a good route runner, has horrible hands as well. I had Braylon Allen as my number 1 running back for a majority of the draft cycle. And I still think he could be finished as the best running back from this class. I think the age and the upside with him is through the roof. Reminds me of Derrick Henry as a runner and just all the power. But you got to be able to catch the ball. Braylon Allen can't do that at a consistent level. So I've got him at number 4. At number 3, it's Jonathan Brooks. Brooks will be my running back 1 in every other draft class except maybe the Bijan and Saquon drafts. But he has an ACL tear. And that's really what it comes down to. Injury pushes him down the board just slightly. He's got an awesome build. He's 6'1", 200 pounds. He's got very good contact balance. He's got receiving upside. He's a patient runner. He's got the speed. Everything you want in a running back, Jonathan Brooks has. I think he could be one of the top running backs in the league. Like I said, he would be a running back 1 in almost every other draft class. But injury concerns push him down the board. It's just the nature of the business. Drops are also a concern with Brooks. I'm not too worried about it, but I do think he could improve his hands just a little bit. Reminds me of Todd Gurley, who was coming off an injury as well after he was drafted, ended up going very highly in the draft and was one of the best running backs in the league for a very long time. I don't know if Brooks is going to be that good, but I think Jonathan Brooks has the potential to be one of the stars at the position in this league. Number 2, I love Jaylen Wright. Am I a biased Tennessee fan? Probably. He's got some of the best speed in the entire draft class. I think he might have the best top-end speed of anyone in this draft class from the tape that I've watched. Go back and watch the opening play in that Georgia game. That'll tell you everything you need to know about his speed. He's patient, and he's got pretty good contact balance. Does a good job of breaking tackles in the open field. Tennessee, similar to Oregon, they run one of the most quarterback-friendly offenses I've seen. So it's really hard to get a gauge on how good of a route runner or a receiver Jaylen Wright is. And he felt like he thrived when he ran outside of the numbers. When he ran inside, it felt like he was neutralized. He wasn't able to get to that top-end speed at the same level. So I'd like to see that improve. Reminds me a little bit of Breece Hall, who's a great running back for the New York Jets. Jaylen Wright has a lot of upside in this league. I think he's going to be a very good running back. But my number 1 running back in the class is Trey Benson from Florida State. Very good size. Again, a guy who, I'll admit it, in my prospect spotlight, I had concerns about his long speed. His long speed was answered. He had an incredible combine. He answered all my questions. Very good through contact. You love that about him. Now, Florida State didn't use him a lot in the receiving game, so that's untapped for me. Blocking is also a question mark, but he reminds me of Joe Mixon as a runner. I think Trey Benson is going to be a very good running back, and he is my number 1 running back in the draft class. So that's going to do it for today's video. If you guys are new to the channel, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Leave a comment. Let me know who your top running backs are in the draft class. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.